Well, this is a good time. Maybe we can develop a discussion around the first assignment, which, as I said, is a short paper which is based on your observations about your use of media. So just to come back a little bit to the writing assignments that we have for the class. Remember, there are going to be 2 term papers, one due on February 20th, one due on May 10th. Together with this first assignment, they're worth 250 points, basically half of the grade for the class. So it's really important that you do these essays and turn them in, because if you miss one, you're missing sort of like a quarter of the grade of class, and that could, bring you down from an A to a C right away and jeopardize you passing the class. I brought that up last class, but just a reminder here early on that it's really important to get these assignments in. So the prompts are up there, and the guidelines which apply to all of these essays are there, and this is all on Canvas. So you can look it over, and we will. So this is something I actually did when I took a class like this eons ago, when I started getting into electronic media before there were smartphones and such. But this is basically asking you to take a look at what you do with media yourself. So a lot of our assignments are, what does the book say? And we're making sure that we're actually learning what's in the curriculum. But this assignment starts out with you, which is it's a good place to start. It's always a great place to start, because you know what you do, and you have your thoughts about, the media that you consume and use, which is quite relevant, obviously. The trick when using personal experience for research is eventually you've got to consider how your individual experience connects out with other people who may be of a similar age or of a similar interest group or stuff. So here in the electronic media businesses, we call those demographics, right? That's one way, at least, where marketers and social scientists sort people out into groups. So you'll hear things like early adopters, or thought leaders, or influencers, or gatekeepers. These are all other kind of social roles, ways of sorting people out. So, you may look at your media consumption or the things that you like to do, and you always want to be the first person to have the thing. You hear about a new thing online, you always want to be the first person to try that out, right? So then you'd be an early adopter. Or, we could talk demographically. If you're a 50-year-old man like me, you have particular consumption habits, media consumption habits, that line you up with a lot of other 50-year-old guys. And for instance, the radio industry thinks that we all want to hear music from 1970 through 1990. And so all of the radio stations that are designed to target people like me will, play that music, and other stations will target you. So this type of knowledge of social groups and such is the way that media works. And so even as we think about our individual responses and the things that we buy and the stuff that we use and what we think is cool and what we like, it becomes far more useful when we start thinking about, well, there are other people like me. How many more people are there like me out there? Are they significant in terms of new media habits, or in terms of new, are they significant to Apple because everyone wants to buy that phone, or stuff like that. So thinking about yourself not just as an individual, but as an individual who's a part of a group or a bunch of different groups is absolutely essential when you're dealing with your personal experience as the foundation of knowledge. All right, so let's just take a look at this assignment. What we're doing is we're getting together some data about what you do with media. So sitting here in the room right now, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you like to consume and what you use. This one asks you to be a little more systematic about it, to track with some accuracy what you do with media. Let's say if you choose 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or actually it might be good to start on a Sunday and pick a weekend day and a weekday, because they tend to be very different in terms of what you do with media. And again, we're doing this as a kind of a way of developing some knowledge and learning more about what we do, but obviously radio and television and advertisers, marketers, they all track this type of stuff too. So let's say you're going to pick Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and they don't have to be 3 consecutive days. They don't have to be 3 days in a row if this would be inconvenient for you or something like that. But just pick 3 days out of the week and sort of say, okay, well, what did I do? Try to think of all the different media that you consumed in that day. So let's talk about that. Does anyone read the newspaper anymore? Mitchell, really?
Sometimes.
How does it even get to your house?
Usually my parents, we were kind of raised with reading newspapers and physical books and stuff, so
Okay.
that's kind of the reason why we kind of read newspapers as of today.
So once in a while it's there. All right,
Once in a while,
newspaper
yeah.
and books. Okay, but you're a rarity now, especially in this demographic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Age.
Again, older people like me, we might get newspapers delivered still, or your parents, but that's becoming less and less predominant. But let's say, thinking of your Sunday, anybody, we're trying to basically just come out with a more comprehensive list of the media that we might be interacting with. Who does what on Sundays? Yeah?
Video games.
Video games, okay. Should we break that down by platforms? Is that worthwhile? Do you play any particular, you play them on your phone? Do you play them on a console? Do you play them on a computer? Which console?
Xbox One.
Xbox, all right. Cool, okay. So we could, in fact, I don't want to go that deep down, but we could go consoles, mobile games,
Okay.
PC, anyway, console, mobile game. I'm probably not even aware of some other possibilities there too. Okay, other people on a Sunday, Sam.
Various chat functions such as Discord.
Okay, I don't even know what that is. Describe that, please.
It's kind of an all-in-one chat service. They've got voice chat, they've got video chat, they've got text chat organized into multiple channels, which are then organized into multiple groups, which are then organized into multiple channels. Basically, it's everything a gamer needs to communicate with other gamers.
Got you. Thank you.
So I use that as a chat service that I play in the background when I'm playing some Rainbow Six Siege with the dudes.
So you might be engaged in some kind of, online gaming. I don't know if that should be, but so you might be, on that, gaming while you also chat. Mm-hmm. Yes, awesome, okay. Other things, other media people use on a Sunday. Nobody watches sports on Sunday? No one uses TV? Up, hand going up, come on guys. All right, so that'd be TV probably?
Sports, yeah.
TV, sports.
Sports and the news.
Sports and news, okay, so we could also put news. So you could break it down by programming type as well,
Yeah.
if you wished. So when we looked at video games, we're kind of breaking it down by technological platform. Down here, we're looking more at different programming types. Sam has brought to us the phenomenon which is of great interest to marketers and researchers, which is people using multiple screens at once, or doing, for instance, just doing at least two different things at once, basically. Another thing that people are really hot about there would be, watching TV and tweeting about it, or things like that. So that is a very great. There's a lot of interest in that. Yes.
I've got Netflix.
So Netflix would be. So what should we say that? Streaming. And we go streaming. You could stream video. You could stream audio. Did we forget? Would people be listening to like Spotify or something like that, or Apple Music on a Sunday or something? I don't know. Sam?
Okay, an example of doing two things at once, or how demographics generally overlap, is you can tell that the demographics between Game of Thrones and online pornography are basically the same, because the viewership for Game of Thrones, so the viewership for Pornhub went down by about 10% during the premiere of Game of Thrones.
Okay,
So,
like the season premiere or something? Yeah.
when it was first released on, well, or whatever it was.
Interesting. Okay. I would have thought that the online porn audience would be about that big, and the Game of Thrones audience would be about that big, and the interaction. But maybe that's why there was only a dip of 10%.
Well, that's still a substantial dip when you consider a website the size of Pornhub.
I guess. We don't pay enough attention to the popularity of porn in electronic media
I
studies.
actually really like how Pornhub runs itself. It's very big. It's very big on transparency and
Okay.
transparency in multiple ways.
Can I stop you there because I don't want to go further into that? Thank you. Not that we want to shy away from discussions of online pornography, but I'm really here trying to come up with a list of just throwing. We're coming up with a list of different media that you might be consuming, and since you're going to have to write about it, I'm trying to get at sort of what level of detail you should want to get into it, because probably a lot of this happens on your phone now, but I wouldn't want you just to write, okay, page 1, I was on my phone for 12 hours this Sunday, but I think we want to break it down into, it's analytically smaller bits, like what were you doing on your phone? You're doing this and that. It's important. Mitchell?
Well, I know this might sound generic, but I also watch YouTube for like car reviews and like revealed tech that's coming out later on in the year and stuff.
Okay, and would that be any old time, or would that be on a Sunday?
Pretty much on a
specifically?
Sunday mostly, yeah.
Okay, gotcha, because you got more free time, I
Yeah.
suppose? Okay, so you'd be streaming video, and then you've got, the specific service you're using or whatever. This is a good start anyway. This gives you a sense of how much detail we want. It may be, I think it's more important to think about to think about media in terms of categories. And then, as we get into more specifically, was it YouTube or was it Vimeo or whatever you call it, or, the particular platform may not be as important as the kind of general type of media that you're using. But again, if you're going to talk, there's also some issues in here as to, we've been distinguishing stuff by programming, we've been distinguishing stuff by, it's in print versus electronic. So especially because the phone is so ubiquitous, the mobile phone gives us so much. You might be reading the news on the phone, you might be consuming your YouTube videos on the phone, you might be chatting or tweeting on the phone, you might be playing mobile games. So especially if you are going to be writing a lot about your phone, do break it down and distinguish the types of things that you're doing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think shopping could also be on there, right?
Yeah. I don't have any money, so I can't do it, but a lot of people enjoy shopping or browsing. So that would go, that would go under a content type, I suppose. I don't want to get obsessed with hierarchies. What you guys need is really thinking about, okay, what do I do on, or typically on these days or stuff? And so the point of doing a diary, because sometimes I'll get an assignment where somebody actually hasn't done a diary, they just pretend they did a diary, and you can always tell because it is just basically general assertions about what they do with no details. Why do you think I really care about all those details? The point of doing something like this, to actually research what you do, to look at what you do, would be to find out something new. So, if you just sit back and don't actually track it, if you don't do a diary in some detail, then you just kind of figure, oh yeah, I'm a guy who likes to, watch Game of Thrones or something like that. You don't really know, gee, how much time do I actually spend not just watching Game of Thrones, but listening to the podcast afterwards, and then looking it up on, my particular social media channels and see how people appreciated that episode, and so on and so on and so on. So if you do the diary, then you may come away from it at the end and say, whoa, man, I spent like 8 hours this week on Game of Thrones. I'm really kind of surprised to learn that. So a diary in some detail can give you data, and you can learn something new about what you do or become more precise about it. So that's why I'm asking you to base this on a diary. And I don't ask you to turn in the nitty-gritty diary. You keep it. So you can always try and fake me out. But I think I know pretty much who does a diary and who doesn't. And if you don't do a diary, you don't learn anything new. So I'd be looking in my diary, I'd think, oh, okay, Sunday morning, didn't consume any media, went for a walk or did something. But Sunday, 1 p.m., started watching TV, from 1 p.m. to, let's say, 3:30, because it was long, and then something. And then I did, nothing, and then later on I was, looking at YouTube from 8 to 9 p.m. or something like that. And then the kids went to bed, and then et cetera, et cetera. So try to, just jot it down like that. When you're in the Nielsen's, which do the radio and the television ratings, they actually give you a little booklet in which they ask you to remember like every radio station that you were listening to and when and where you were and that kind of stuff. So first thing to do is to get that data. Again, remember it's about 3 days. It's about 3 days, and they don't have to be consecutive days. Try not to make them the days that they're all the same, because then it's like, well, 3 days, you might as well just have done 1 day. So that's why I think a 1 weekend day and 1 weekday, or 1 day that you have off and the other days where you're, more your usual kind of consumption, that would be really good. So mix it up a little bit so that you get a good sense of, different stuff. And, write down the times, and you'll remember also where you were when you consumed some of this stuff. So that'd be good, all right? So any questions about that first part? You basically do a diary and track your media consumption. And hopefully you'll come up with either some precision about what you do, or even some surprises sometimes as to, oh, I thought I was spending more time than that watching TV. I'm actually using the internet a lot more, reading the newspapers on the internet or something. All right, now here's the tough part. For one of those days, you're required to give up your favorite entertainment technology. Could be a smartphone, could be a gaming console, could be computer, radio, web browsing, television, video games, DVDs, etc. So for 1 day, or part of 1 day, if you can't go a whole day, I'm asking you to give up the thing that you like using the most, or the thing that you would be using the most, to try to get a sense of what your life is like without that little piece in there, that media piece. So what do you think about that?
That's going to be pretty easy for me.
Is that right, Mitchell?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ron?
For that
I
challenge.
actually went on like an entire day without music, and then that's because I got kind of tired of just listening continuously.
Oh, okay. So it was a voluntary breather, a break from it.
It was because I was bouncing between YouTube videos and then Spotify because I listen to music in order to play music.
Okay, cool. All right. And you wanted to say something?
I was just saying it's probably going to suck.
It's probably going to suck? Okay. Who else? Who had a hand up? Anyone? Yeah?
Well, I think that like on certain days like this, like today it's raining, like somebody like me, like if I want to go outside and do something, I can't, so I'm going to go home and play video games.
Right.
So it's like,
Right. So pick your day.
I take that into consideration.
Okay, right. Yeah, there are ways to make this less painful than others. And Andrea, is it?
Andrea.
Andrea, yeah.
Oh, I've been like without a phone for a whole month.
Oh my God.
And I lost it one time, so it shouldn't be that hard.
All right. Okay. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like, if I'm ever trying to like save some money, I just hop on a video game Saturday night, Friday night, just keep it in the house.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
Big 2K.
Uh-huh.
Seasons.
Okay.
For
Okay.
real.
It's a way of,
Seasons.
yeah, frankly, if I want peace in my place, I like, just put your kids on a game or something. And it's just like, silence for, you want 3 hours? You just put them on, 3 hours gone, So, yeah. It's it's I understand that. Yeah. So think about it. I'm not asking you to give up something that would, hurt you at work or something like that. That's a, because you may decide, my phone is absolutely essential. Now, let's talk about that too. You don't have to give up your entire phone. Maybe if you find that, the thing that you care about the most currently is chat, or like let's say, I don't know, Snapchat or something like that on your phone. Can you give that up for 6 hours and see how it feels?
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. Oh, so remember, you don't have to give up the whole device, just one part of it, right? Yeah?
Does it count when your phone died? Or,
Well, I mean, in terms of, the to write this, again, I'm asking you to actually live it and think about it. So it's not like, 6 months ago when my phone died,
no,
how did
like, actually, you usually don't carry a charger around. And then you only get a charge if you're home or when you're in your car.
Right. If it so happens that, that was your favorite media technology and you just had to give it up because the battery went out, that would be okay.
Yeah.
That would be all right. Yeah. Was there another question out there that I missed about, what's permissible, what's not? Okay. But I think you're already, some folks are already thinking about how it was when you gave up your favorite medium, and you're, realizing, oh yeah, I felt something. I felt, that was missing. So this is the point of giving it up. It's not just to make your life inconvenient. In fact, when I did this, I had to give it up for a week. But that was before email really mattered or something like that. So it wasn't so bad. But yeah, back in the old days when things moved really slowly, you had to give something up for a week. And it was weird. But it should be interesting to see how you feel about giving up for a brief period of time. And here the idea is, what would life be like without it? That's kind of it. If this thing didn't exist, what else would you be doing? What would you be occupying yourself with, or learning about things with? Or interacting with your friends with that or stuff. Because there's a million different things we do with media. Entertaining ourselves, informing ourselves, distracting ourselves, changing our moods, and so on and so forth. The lists. There is in media theory, there's a set of theories called uses and gratifications. They have a list of more than 250 things that people turn to media for. So it can be interesting just, through your own experience of figuring out what you really spend the most time with, what you like, the most, and then giving that up briefly to see, well, how deeply embedded that is in your life. That could be interesting. So this assignment is designed to make you aware of the extent to which all types of electronic media are woven into your daily routine. Specifically, the assignment should A, enhance your awareness of the uses, functions, and rewards of media technology use. So, think about these, like, okay, why do I, tune into that stuff? There's a lot of morality. I'm sure you've felt this too. There's a lot of morality out there about media. We touched on porn. There's also games. The idea is there's a whole long-standing criticism of games. Oh, you're wasting your time playing games. And then there's actually people doing TED Talks saying, no, actually you learn a lot through games, and there's actually a lot of constructive thinking going on with it. So there's a lot of morality about media use, and it is, in the 1950s there were comic book scandals. Did you guys hear about those, for instance? So there were people who were saying, these comic books, they're destroying the minds of young Americans. They should be, regulated, and it's like today it seems ridiculous, right? The kind of comic books that were out there. But if you go through the history, there's a lot of moralizing about different media as they come out, and they're often regarded as, many whole, areas of media that people think they're just a waste of time. And then there's the good media, like the internet is going to enlighten us all, and, read the newspapers, and so on and so forth. So there's also, a lot of media which is held up as a value. Yeah. Is it Parker?
Yeah.
Yeah, Parker.
It would lose it. A comic book specifically would lose its value if you had to swipe the next page on your
I don't get. Okay, I don't get it quite. But so you're saying it would lose its value, like it would.
Considerably, if somebody like who necessarily is like needs their phone, right, and they want to read a comic book, but they don't want to give their phone up because they can't find a comic book because they're
Okay.
not gonna go and find one. It loses its like, I guess its comic book value to just have it media wise.
I see. Oh, okay. So if you're consuming it on your phone, then are we talking about the parameters for this assignment?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, thinking. Yeah, I mean, the phone, I think we should distinguish, for this assignment, we should distinguish, like, well, with the phone, if you're going to give up comic books or something, then, yeah, it doesn't mean you have to give up everything else on the phone, but if it's going to be reading comics on the phone and that's a significant thing to you, then you could think about giving it up, I guess. All right. Okay. So we're hoping that you will be thinking about what you get out of the media that you use, and B, serve as a vehicle for self-discovery, whereby you closely examine taken for granted aspects of your personal media technology dependency. So what that means is thinking about this deeply and developing some data on it may lead you to some surprising observations about why you use media. It may not, but it might. Hopefully it will. It'll make the whole thing that much more rewarding. But you can't always make insight happen. But you can try. You just try and you do it. See what comes out of it. You learn a lot. So choose 3 days to research and monitor your media use. Pick average media use days that reflect what you usually do with the media. So if you're going to have a day where it's like basically you're cut off from everything, that may not be a representative day. It's like pick days where you would normally have this particular media consumption habits that you do, and then drop something out of it. On those days, note down the time you use a particular media, where you are, what you're doing with them. Be precise, because I'll know if you're faking it. I won't really, but usually I do. Then write up your analysis of what you discovered in your research. Do not submit your raw diary notes. So I'm not expecting to get an essay which is like this list, right? Instead, you're going to have this list and you're going to have it in front of you, and then you're going to write some pages about what it is you found out when you did this. So this is the data, but the essay that you write is an essay with paragraphs, sentences, and it's the result of thinking about what you learned through this little exercise. So some things, the questions that you could consider looking over all this stuff. Again, you're not giving me the diary, but looking it over. So what did you spend the most time with? And then also, what did you spend the most money on? And did that even up? Is that sometimes you spend a lot of money for something that just goes by like that? That's what I was telling my kid, read a book, man. It's like $15 and then, or free from the library. And you're with it for like a week or something, versus what he wants to do is like buy right away something and it's gone. So think about where you spend most of your money, if you spend any money at all on media right now, which is another issue. Yeah, Mitchell?
Might be a really odd question. Do ATM machines count?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay.
Right.
I mean, their technology, their devices, but I think their function is far outside of the.
Yeah, I guess so.
You say, well, would online banking qualify? And
yeah, I mean, because sometimes the like ATM machines, they like put out news about like what kind of like new systems they came out with.
That's true.
So,
or I was at the gas pump and they showed me some CNN or something like that, right?
Yeah,
That they also
like
do
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those things would probably qualify.
Okay.
How do your media choices relate to your interest and personal identity? Okay, so this one's interesting. I know when I was your age, for most of you, popular music was a very important thing, and obviously it had many functions and uses in our lives. Both as background music to social activities and mood regulation. Put on a really song you love when you're feeling down, and also an identity issue, right? And so, you know, if you were a fan of some type of music or another type of music, it said something about you. And a lot of our discussions about music wasn't necessarily about the quality of the music or whatever, but it was, we were like identifying ourselves in a particular way with music. I'm interested, do people do this with either online activity or with games? Are there like Xbox people and, you know, Candy Crush people, or I don't know, like what is it? Do people actively cultivate a personal identity like that in the way that, you know, I might have done with music in my day, and maybe people still do with music? Yeah.
Maybe they do like a little, like they can connect it to themselves just a little bit, but not like fully, like personally, like identify with Xbox or like with a game that they're playing. But
It's not as strong a tool.
But I think that they do still like identify a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. That's interesting. I was just remembering that even in, you know, I teach an audio production class, and when you go into the online forums or when you just go to like a NAM or something like that, you know, there's everybody sitting there and they've all got all these different attitudes about, you know, what's the best mixer, what's the best, you know, Pro Tools or Logic, et cetera, you know, and they're really intensely believing this, you know, and it's also an aspect of that personal identity thing, you know. It's like I can define myself because I hate that thing that you think is great.
Like the Apple versus PC.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that would go way back there, and now it would be iOS versus Android or something like that, right? Does all of these things say something? So if this is important to you, you know, then write about it. You know, just pick it up. Say, well, why did I choose, you know, this type of phone or this type of activity? What does it mean to me? That could be another interesting aspect, which, you know, you could write maybe a lot about that, maybe just a bit. Yeah, Ron?
So you do want details along with the schedule?
So the schedule I don't want. I want you to sit and look at the schedule and out of that pull some ideas, right? So if you were looking at the schedule and you said, oh, I spent all my time listening to, you know, this type of music. I didn't realize I spent like 12 hours a week listening to this particular type of music. And then here it would just be, does that help me define myself somehow by that type of music? Maybe it doesn't. So in that case, don't write anything about that. But maybe it does, you know. You know, a lot of advertisements are basically presenting you some ideas about yourself or about, you know, what's good in the world, and inviting you to kind of tie yourself to it by consuming that product. So that kind of thing might be going on. If it's not, don't mention it. But if it is, it could be interesting. 3, how does your media usage compare or contrast with that of your classmates? What conclusions can you draw about the media usage of your age group in general? So before February 1st, well, you know, I'll ask you, how's your diary going on? And maybe we can have another chat like we have a little bit today, where, you know, you can compare notes and you can find out, you know, how your media usage compares to others. You know, what conclusions can you draw about the media usage of your age group in general? So this is what I was talking about at the beginning, where I was saying personal experience is really important, but the way that it becomes, you know, a broader kind of knowledge is if you can relate what you do to other groups that are similar age or similar interests, or, you know, they're all in college, or they all have kids, or they don't have kids, they're single, or they're in a relationship, or, and so on. You know, there's so many ways of grouping society. But so the question is really, oh, okay, I like this. Am I like a lot of other people who like this? You know, and that's a way of generalizing what is really very personal and specific to you, which is important. 4, what was your experience of living without a particular medium? Right, so a medium, we talk about media, mass media, TV, radio, such. So a medium, apart from being a person who says they can talk to the dead, which is something I love, but a medium is also the singular of media. So a mass medium would be radio. The mass media would be radio, TV, and the internet and all that. So what was your experience of living without a particular medium? Beyond any inconvenience, did you feel disempowered anyway? Did it take something away from you? Was there something that you usually can do or wanted to get done you couldn't? What does this tell you about media as extensions of our human capacities? So that is a famous phrase from the 1960s from a guy named Marshall McLuhan who thought about media as, he called them extensions of man. And since it was the 1960s, it sounds kind of sexist, but what he meant is, that electronic media technology extends particular capacities that we already have and maybe creates some new and novel ones. But it definitely, makes your memory so much better, so much more comprehensive to have with you always a recording device that you can, find stuff out, and so on and so forth. Your ability to hear is extended by the microphone and the recording apparatus. In addition to that, multi-track music production can produce sounds and music that never existed before. Digital synthesis can give us, control over sound waves and such that we never could have had before. The recording that we can do can allow us to analyze sample by sample a sound in a way that no human being has ever been able to do before. Right? So it's a very powerful kind of metaphor that media are extensions. Our hearing has become acutely analytical now in a way, and we can take what we hear and turn it into a picture that Pro Tools or whatever Logic will display for us, and we can cut with that. And so, and likewise in the visual media, they've extended other capacities. Slow motion. It was a huge deal in the beginnings of photography. To photograph, there was a bet on, does its feet ever leave the ground as it gallops or not? That was a bet. There was money placed on that. And nobody knew. They couldn't prove it. And a photographer developed, a thing that shot the entire movement of the horse, and they were able to prove, yeah, its feet leave the ground. That seems so basic, but we couldn't even know that for sure without the media. So media extend things in really amazing ways, and we haven't again cracked, the kind of the sociality, the way it changes socialization, of course. But again, could we have the culture of relationships that we have now without, a Tinder or without different ways of, just people meeting other people? How weird it seemed to me, again, I'm old and I'm sorry to harp on my experience, but how weird it seemed to me that people would turn to online dating when they started, and just how absolutely normal it is now. Crazy. All right. So that's what I mean by what does this tell you about media as extensions of our human capacities? If you want to give that a thought, go right ahead. But again, that's optional. That's optional. What I'm hoping is that, again, through taking a careful look at your media use and asking yourself, why do I use this? What do I get out of it? You'll develop some insight into what you do that you hadn't thought of before. And then by leaving one behind for a day or some fraction of a day, do you recognize what that does for you? Why, when you remove it, do you feel like something's missing? And think about that. Okay. So please be precise. So yeah, we do want the details, but also concise. So this is 2 pages. So try, rather than sitting down and just starting to write and say, okay, I reached 2 pages. My son does that all the time. It's like, okay, I wrote my 2 pages. And of course, he was just getting into thinking about it as he sat down and started to write. Do your thinking first, and then try to write up your 2 pages of your most important thoughts, instead of just starting and giving me the first two pages that came to mind. All All right, so go a little further. Maybe make some notes about, okay, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. And then go through your notes and say, okay, if I could only really go into like 3 of these things, what would be the top 3? All right, and then start and write those 3 observations out. You know, wow, I do a lot of chatting with my friends while we watch our favorite TV show or something like that. Or, wow, Twitch is this channel on Twitch is the most amazing thing. You know, so those wows, try to get those in there. And then if you have extra space, you can get in the smaller stuff, the things that you feel are less important. Okay? And there's no title page and there's no bibliography in this because you didn't have to read anything to do this, right? So now I'm an old guy and clearly I don't understand all that much about everything. So if you're dealing with some new media, like Sam gave us a really great description of
Discord.
Yes, what was it called again?
Discord.
As
in Discord. D-I-S-C-O-R-D.
Like that? Or with the D?
D.
Discord. Okay, thank you. So yeah, if you,
Funny accent.
yeah, if you guys can, summarize things for me, if it, that'd be great. You know, just if you're using something like Discord, if I can look it up in Wikipedia, that's fine. Otherwise, just give me like a quick idea of what is it exactly. That's a good exercise for you. Is just again sorting things out into like, how do I classify this? All right, but thoughts or questions about that? What do you, other ideas about this? So to come back to like, well, what if, what if I drop my phone in a puddle, it stops working, does that count? And, I'm sorry for what happens to you. And yeah, I guess it would count if you feel that your phone is your most, the media that you spend the most time with and you like the most, then yeah, write about how it is to lose that, to not have that. Right? So there you go. Oh, and then on the assignment, here's an example. Okay, just because again, some people might turn in their raw diary, but that's not what it's all about. So this was a good one, a couple of pages. And you'll learn all about how Giovanna spends her time with media. So you can look that over if that'll help you, just figure out, okay, what does he think is a good idea? No questions? Nothing? All right. Did our little conversation here, what do you think you'll find, just as a final little thing here? Like looking ahead, what do you think you're going to find? Yeah, Parker?
Information consumption.
Okay, you spend a lot of time
Based
doing that?
off like how she's been a month without a phone.
Uh-huh.
I just got this phone. It's like it's not leaving my side.
Right.
Versus when I didn't have a phone, it was just kind of like it didn't matter. But still, I was still like, I read the newspaper a few times, but like I was still watching the news and stuff like that, just because it was given to me instead of like, all right, I gotta go find a newspaper, like wait for it to be delivered.
Gotcha. So having the phone just immediately changed your consumption patterns. You stop.
It's easier, somebody would say, because it's right.
It's just having things right at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh,
It's you don't even think about it. You know what I mean?
You take it for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a kind of a saying in the textbook somewhere. There's like I'll identify it for you, but there's one of the things is like something like when quality, cost, and convenience reach a certain point, then a medium breaks through, and it's interesting just looking at the latest, the smartphone just breaking through to like 60, 70% of the population now, and how everything else then changes all around it, And people in the media businesses are, they're terrified at that uncontrollable aspect of, what's this next device? What's this next thing gonna do? The transition from ABC, CBS, NBC as being the biggest companies, or Disney, or their owners. The transition from that to Google, Amazon, and Apple running the show, it's within 10 years. certainly iTunes in the music area showed, that was an early sign that, whoa, Jesus, like how can these Silicon Valley companies take over our LA industries, you know? And now it's like, you know, it's like China on the rise, you know? It's like Silicon Valley, you know, it's impossible to stop. And so everybody's looking at that going, whoa, how are we going to deal with that? You know, and I think one way to read, you know, the 20th Century Fox acquisition is just, you know, News Corp looking at it saying, we've had a good run, 25 years we had this network. We got a great library, but looking ahead, how the hell are we going to compete with all of these streaming services and everything else? Let's just get rid of it while we can, you know, cash in and you know, and I think that's part of what's going on there anyway. It's just, whew. So, and you know, it is easy to ignore how incredibly important it is to any of these industries. Like just the shift of balance is like the end of the world for these companies. That's something to keep in mind. We just, oh, big deal. You know, Apple's a cool company and stuff, but if you work at, you know, one of these other companies that are losing market share, it's, you know, it's tragedy. Whatever. Remember, News Corp bought MySpace, right? And it's just like a waste of millions of dollars, right? It just died. Yeah, Sam.
A similarly disastrous thing to like MySpace dying happens whenever one of the older media companies attempts to buy something from the newer media.
Okay,
like,
go on.
How many of you guys remember, like back in the late 2000s, close to 2010, I think, there was a YouTuber called Fred,
Oh man.
who was acquired by Nickelodeon.
Fred was.
They made a TV series of it, and Fred has never been seen since.
Oh God.
So yeah, that is why I don't think it's ever a good idea to sell out to anyone. Especially not Nickelodeon, because they'll just screw over your entire brand.
Owned by Viacom, by the way. Yeah, I
Viacom. I mean, as someone who is something of a YouTuber, Viacom does not understand the concept of fair use. My video is a parody. It is legal for me to have it up. Do not take it down again, please.
You're referring to that $1 billion lawsuit that Viacom attacked YouTube for.
No, I'm referring
copyright
to,
infringements.
my own video is being taken down.
Oh, okay, but that your individual experience was in part, you know, kicked off by Viacom suing YouTube for $1 billion for copyright infringements, right? Yeah. Because we all exist within, as individuals, but we still exist within these economic structures and other social structures as well, right? So.
Yeah, and since YouTube just introduced a new policy that has demonetized my entire channel, I've decided I'm just not even going to give a crap about any of their stuff until my channel is popular enough that it can be monetized again. Okay. So now the current kind of rules now are that they'll let you put up some material that they see as infringing, but they won't let you make any money off of it? In theory. In practice, it's if you say anything that we even remotely disagree with, we'll demonetize it. And we might just demonetize it because we feel like it.
But we're talking more specifically, like you were talking about parodying some material and your fair use on it.
Made a silly edit of one of the Nickelodeon shows a while back, and Viacom said no.
Did they take it down, or
took it down?
They had to take it down?
I was very angry. But nowadays it's so commonplace that I just don't even care anymore.
Yeah, that may be how, you know, the population actually wins against the corporation. It's just people just what the hell, we'll keep doing it. Yeah. Oh, but interesting point. Sure. Yeah. Other thoughts? All right, so we'll come back to this again, but next week we're going to charge in with a textbook, and you'll see that there's quite a bit of information to tackle each class. But we'll make time to come back to this and talk about it again before this is due. So this is due in 2 weeks. So get on it, pick your 3 days, and start your diary, and then you can do some analysis after that. So have a good weekend, and if there's still a few minutes and chat about something, I'm here.